You know the feeling. You're spinning all day like a squirrel in a wheel, tackling an endless list of tasks, but at the end of the week, your actual progress is exactly zero. It's a state of frantic, repetitive energy that yields absolutely no forward momentum. For most of us, this is simply how life works. We operate as people of process. When handed a task, our only concern is executing the immediate physical steps in front of us. We focus on the movement itself, the hustle, without ever questioning if the machine we're powering is actually moving forward. But there is a small minority who refuse to enter the rat race. These are people of systems. They ignore the illusion of busyness. Instead of rushing to act, they step back to engineer a mechanism that guarantees their desired result before they ever start working. Abraham Lincoln summarized this perfectly. If I had 6 hours to chop down a tree, I would spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. A person of process approaches that tree and immediately starts hacking away with a dull blade. They believe they don't have the time to stop and think because the physical act of swinging the axe feels like progress, even as their efficiency plummets and their exhaustion grows. The system builder, however, willingly halts their physical labor. They spend their time calculating the angle of the cut, testing the edge of the blade, and designing a process that makes the final felling of the tree almost effortless. Exhausting effort is mathematically inferior to strategic preparation. In the end, a bad system will defeat a good, hard-working person every single time. So what exactly is a system? It is an organized collection of structures and algorithms that operate independently. You build them by observing how reality functions, how gravity pulls or markets move, and translating those observations into repeatable formulas. Once launched, the loop sustains itself. This creates a clear division of labor, the architect and the bricklayer. When you take a standard job, you are effectively inserting yourself as a bricklayer into a pre-existing system designed by someone else. You are a spoke in a wheel owned by the CEO. Take Bill Gates, for example. He built Microsoft into a global force not by writing every line of code himself, but by designing a structural ecosystem. He created a system that coordinates over 100,000 people to execute a single vision. The absolute ceiling of your reach is dictated by a simple metric, whether you are executing tasks within someone else's blueprint or designing the blueprint itself. Consider the case of Raymond Lee. At 19, he needed custom t-shirts for a school tennis club on a highly restricted budget and found that existing companies offered terrible service for a premium price. He did not respond by buying a printing press or committing to working 100 manual hours a week physically printing shirts in a garage. For most people, that is the default process solution. Instead, he designed a digital algorithm, a website called ooshirts.com, that automatically bridged buyers directly with external manufacturers and shipping companies. At 20, he was a millionaire. He took 0 external investment, employing exactly 2 people, himself and a phone operator. The rest was fully automated by outside manufacturers and couriers. Systemic leverage allows an individual to completely decouple their financial results from the physical time they spend working. The machine itself does the heavy lifting. There is a common misconception that relying on a system is a strategy for the lazy. In reality, building a self-sustaining framework requires intense, front-loaded strategic sacrifice. Gabrielle Coco Chanel stored it with 0 resources, born into a shelter for the poor and raised in a monastery orphanage. She had no family support and no financial safety net. She escaped poverty not by sewing faster than her peers, but by observing how fashion actually influenced society. She replaced the stereotypical, stifling corsets of the era with simple, functional silhouettes and built a global design architecture that prioritized comfort over tradition. Extreme success demands a painful, upfront mental labor to design a working system. Most people avoid this heavy cognitive lifting by hiding in comfortable, mindless routines. Making the shift from a person of process to a system builder requires a mandatory mental upgrade. You have to develop strategic thinking. This mindset requires a 360-degree view, studying the successes and failures of those who came before you, to avoid the friction of blind trial and error. You are looking for the underlying mechanics of how things actually work. The Wright brothers didn't invent flight through guesswork. They spent years analyzing the flight mechanics of birds and studying the crashes of previous aviators. They derived the specific formulas for lift and control before they ever took to the air. Look at your own current reality. Audit your finances, audit your health, your daily grind. Are you running from task to task, hoping sheer volume will eventually equal success? You have to stop running on the squirrel wheel. Step back, sharpen the axe, and actively design the mathematical system for your own life, because a bad system will beat a good person every single time.